My name is Laura Sterling, and I'm 35 years old. 10 years ago, my own parents threw me out of their Greenwich mansion while I was 6 months pregnant, calling me a disgrace to the Sterling family name. They chose their precious reputation over their own daughter, leaving me with nothing but a suitcase and a shattered heart. For a decade, they acted like I never existed. Until last week, when they barged into my Manhattan law office demanding to meet their grandchild. But what they discovered about who I'd become, and more importantly, what I now controlled, left them utterly speechless. Before we dive into this journey of betrayal and ultimate justice, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you truly connect with this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Picture this. May 2014, New Haven, Connecticut. I'd just walked across the stage at Yale Law School, my magna cum laude diploma still warm in my hands. The Sterling name, my name, had opened every door before I could even knock. My father, Richard Sterling, ran Sterling Industries, a pharmaceutical empire worth hundreds of millions. Our Greenwich estate sprawled across 8 acres, complete with tennis courts and a pool house larger than most people's homes. Growing up, I'd watched my parents host senators in our ballroom, seen my mother Victoria organize charity galas where a single table cost more than most Americans made in a year. The Bentley in our driveway, her collection of Hermes bags, his Patek Philippe watches, these weren't just possessions. They were proof of our position, our untouchable status in Connecticut's old money society. But here's what nobody knew. Sterling Industries hadn't always belonged to my father. My grandfather, William Sterling, had built it from nothing in the 1960s, turning a small research lab into a pharmaceutical powerhouse. He'd died 2 years before my graduation, and I still remember how my father had barely concealed his relief at the funeral. Finally, I'd overheard him tell my mother, no more of his meddling. At Yale, I'd thrown myself into my studies, determined to make the Sterling name mean something more than just money. Corporate law, contract negotiations, trust and estate planning, I absorbed it all. My professors called me brilliant. My classmates called me driven. My parents called me their future legacy. If only they knew how right they were, just not in the way they imagined. Because 3 weeks before graduation, everything changed with 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. The father was James, a fellow law student who'd already accepted a position at a London firm. When I told him about the pregnancy, he'd gone pale, mumbled something about bad timing, and transferred to the UK program within a week. No goodbye, no forwarding address, just a text saying he wasn't ready for this kind of responsibility. I never heard from him again. But here's the thing. I was ready. At 25, with a Yale law degree and my whole life ahead of me, I made the choice that would define everything. I would keep this baby. I would be a mother. Yes, it would be hard. Yes, it would change my carefully planned trajectory. But holding that positive test, I felt something I'd never experienced in my perfectly curated life. Pure, unconditional love for someone I hadn't even met yet. I spent 3 weeks preparing what I'd say to my parents. They'd be shocked, certainly. Disappointed, probably. But surely they'd come around. This would be their first grandchild, their legacy continuing into the next generation. I practiced the words in my apartment mirror. Mom, Dad, I have news. It's unexpected, but it's wonderful. The strange thing was, nobody had mentioned my grandfather's will since his funeral. The lawyers had handled everything quietly, my father had said, brushing off my questions. Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart. Your trust fund is secure. But sometimes, late at night, I'd remember how grandfather used to pull me aside at family dinners. Patience, Laura, he'd whisper, his eyes twinkling. The best things come to those who wait and watch. I should have paid more attention to those words. I should have wondered why the estate lawyers kept calling, only to be told by my father that everything was handled. The drive from New Haven to Greenwich usually took 3 hours. That day in late May, It felt like 3 minutes and 3 years simultaneously. My hands gripped the steering wheel of my Honda Civic, the modest car I'd insisted on buying myself, much to my parents' embarrassment. A Sterling in a Honda? My mother had gasped. But I'd wanted something that was mine, purchased with money I'd earned tutoring undergrads. As I pulled through the iron gates of our estate, memories flooded back. There was the oak tree where I'd built a fort at age 7, convinced I could live there forever. The rose garden where my mother had taught me that appearances were everything. Even the thorns must be perfect, Laura. The library where grandfather had read me stories, always ending with, "Remember, little one, real power isn't what people see, it's what they don't see coming." My father's navy Bentley sat in its usual spot, polished to a mirror shine. Through the window, I glimpsed my mother's latest acquisition, a Kelly bag in that specific shade of orange that cost more than most people's cars. The house itself rose before me like a monument to success. Limestone and glass, 3 stories of architectural perfection featured in Town and Country magazine just last year. I parked beside the fountain, a marble monstrosity my mother had imported from Italy. My reflection in the car window showed a young woman in a simple sundress, 6 months pregnant but carrying it well. I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. They loved me. They'd raised me. Surely that would count for something. Taking a deep breath, I walked up the front steps and rang the doorbell. It was the last time I would ever announce myself at my childhood home. My mother opened the door herself, unusual, since we had staff for that. Her smile was practiced, perfect, the same one she wore for charity photographers. "Laura, we weren't expecting you. How were your finals?" "I graduated, Mom, magna cum laude." I stepped into the foyer, my heels clicking on Italian marble. "Wonderful. Your father's in his study. Richard, Laura's here." He emerged, bourbon in hand despite it being barely noon. His face held that expectant look, the one that said I'd better have good news about job offers from white shoe firms. "Actually, I have something to tell you both." My heart hammered as we moved to the living room. They sat on the cream sofa, a $30,000 piece from Milan. I remained standing. "I'm pregnant, 6 months along." The silence stretched like a taut wire. My father's face went from confusion to comprehension to something I'd never seen before, pure rage. The bourbon glass shattered against the fireplace. "What did you say?" His voice was deadly quiet. "I'm having a baby. I know it's unexpected." "Unexpected?" My mother's laugh was sharp as crystal breaking. "It's a disaster. What will the board members think? What will everyone at the club say?" "I don't care what they—" "You don't care?" My father stood, his face now purple. "You've ruined everything we built for you. Every connection, every opportunity, gone. No Sterling has ever been a single mother. Ever." "Times change, Dad. I'm keeping my baby." "Then you're no daughter of mine." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "You have 20 minutes to pack what you can carry. After that, security will escort you out." My mother was already removing my photos from the mantelpiece, dropping them into the wastebasket with theatrical precision. "You can't be serious." I stared at them, these people I'd called my parents for 25 years. "This is your grandchild we're talking about." "No," my mother said, her voice arctic. "We have no grandchild. What we have is a daughter who has destroyed the Sterling reputation with her carelessness. What will the Vanderbilts think? The Astors? We'll be the laughingstock of Greenwich." "There's still time," my father said, his meaning crystal clear. "Dr. Morrison could handle it discreetly. Or you could go away, Switzerland perhaps. Give it up for adoption. Return next year like nothing happened." "I'm not getting rid of my baby. And I'm not hiding." My voice grew stronger. "I'm a Yale-educated lawyer. I can provide for my child." "A Yale degree means nothing if you're an unwed mother," my mother snapped. "No respectable firm will hire you. No decent man will marry you. You'll be nothing but another statistic, another cautionary tale mothers tell their daughters." My father pulled out his phone. I'm calling security. You have 15 minutes now. Dad, please. Don't. He turned his back. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. I climbed the stairs to my childhood room one last time. The walls still held my Yale acceptance letter, my high school valedictorian certificate, photos of family vacations to Martha's Vineyard. I pulled a suitcase from the closet, the same one I'd taken to college, and threw in what I could: clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the pearl necklace grandfather had given me for my 21st birthday. As I zipped the suitcase, I heard my mother on the phone. Yes, Bunny, you won't believe what's happened. Laura has disgraced us all. The family photos on my dresser caught my eye. I left them behind. Security was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. Marcus, who'd worked for our family for 10 years, who'd driven me to school dances and college interviews. His face was apologetic but firm. I'm sorry, Miss Laura. I have my orders. My mother stood by the door, holding it open like she couldn't wait to fumigate the house. My father had retreated to his study, but I could see his silhouette through the glass doors, already on another call, probably to his lawyers. Your credit cards have been canceled, my mother announced. Your trust fund is frozen until you come to your senses. Your health insurance ends today. Don't try to use the Sterling name for anything. We'll sue you for fraud if you do. You're really doing this? Throwing out your pregnant daughter? We're not throwing out our daughter, she said, examining her manicured nails. We no longer have a daughter. You are no longer a Sterling. Is that clear enough for you? I dragged my suitcase toward the door, each step echoing in the marble foyer. At the threshold, I turned back one last time. What about love? Doesn't that count for anything? Love? My father had emerged from his study. Love is what we tried to give you. The best education, the best opportunities, the best connections. You threw it all away for what? A bastard child? Don't you dare call my baby that. Get out. His voice was final. If you try to contact us, we'll file a restraining order. If you show up here, you'll be arrested for trespassing. You're dead to us. As I dragged my suitcase down those marble steps, past the fountain and the manicured gardens, I made a promise to myself and my unborn child. We would survive this. We would thrive. And one day, they would regret this moment. If you've ever felt abandoned by family when you needed them most, you're not alone. I see you, and I understand that pain. Drop a comment sharing your story. Our community is here to support each other, and sometimes knowing others have walked this path makes all the difference. And if this resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps me share these important stories. Now here's where my story takes an unexpected turn, because while my parents were busy destroying my present, they had no idea what my grandfather had already secured for my future. Within hours, my parents had sent an email to every relative, every family friend, every professional connection we'd ever had. The subject line was simple: regarding Laura. The content was devastating. It is with deep regret that we must inform you that Laura Sterling has chosen to bring shame upon our family name through her reckless behavior and poor judgment. As she has refused to take responsibility for her actions or accept reasonable solutions, we have been forced to sever all ties. We ask that you respect our decision and refrain from any contact with her. She is no longer a member of the Sterling family and has no claim to the Sterling name, resources, or connections. My cousin Emma forwarded it to me from a rest stop on I-95, adding only, "I'm sorry, but I can't risk my trust fund. Good luck." By nightfall, I'd been unfriended, blocked, and deleted from every social circle I'd ever known. The president of the Yale Alumni Association called to inform me that my membership had been reassessed. The country club sent a formal letter revoking my family membership. Even the doorman at my parents' Manhattan pied-à-terre had been instructed not to acknowledge me. But here's what struck me as odd. Even in my devastation, not once did they mention grandfather. William Sterling, who'd built everything they were so proud of, who died just 2 years ago. It was like he'd never existed. The lawyers from Morrison and Associates had called 3 times that week, according to my phone records. But my father had told me everything was handled. Standing in that cheap motel room off Route 95, counting the $2,000 in my checking account, I wondered what grandfather would think of all this. He'd always said the Sterling name meant something more than money. I was about to learn how right he was. The roadside inn charged $49 a night, cash only. The sheets were rough, the air conditioner wheezed, and I could hear every conversation through the paper-thin walls. I sat on the edge of the bed, my suitcase open beside me, calculating how long my money would last. $2,000. Maybe 3 months if I was careful. Then what? Morning sickness hit hard at 3 a.m. I knelt over the cracked toilet, 7 months pregnant, completely alone. No health insurance, no job prospects. Who would hire a heavily pregnant woman? No family, no friends brave enough to defy my parents' edict. I pulled out my laptop and searched for law firms, sending out resume after resume. Within hours, the rejections started rolling in. Position filled. Not hiring at this time. One honest HR manager actually called. "Laura, I'll be straight with you. Richard Sterling has made it clear that anyone who hires you will lose Sterling Industries business. That's a $50 million account. I'm sorry." By the third night, panic had set in. I couldn't afford prenatal care. I couldn't afford a security deposit on an apartment. I couldn't even afford a crib for my baby. The Sterling name, which had opened every door my entire life, was now a scarlet letter. I lay on that lumpy motel bed, feeling my baby kick, and whispered, "I'm so sorry, little one. I promised you'd have everything, and I can't even give you a home." That's when my phone rang. Unknown number, 212 area code. "Miss Sterling, this is Marcus Cooper from Morrison & Associates. I'm a senior partner here. Your grandfather spoke very highly of you before he passed. I understand you might be looking for employment." My heart stopped. Morrison & Associates was one of Manhattan's most prestigious firms. How did they even know? Yes, I'm looking for work, but I should tell you, I'm pregnant, due in 2 months. "We're aware," Marcus Cooper said, his voice warm but professional. "Your grandfather was one of our most valued clients. He made certain arrangements before he passed, arrangements your father has been trying very hard to keep you from discovering." "What arrangements?" "That's a conversation better had in person. Can you come to our Manhattan office tomorrow? We have an entry-level position in our trust and estates department, full benefits, including immediate health insurance and paid maternity leave. It's not charity, Miss Sterling. Your grandfather always said you'd be brilliant. We could use someone with your credentials." I gripped the phone, tears streaming down my face. "My father, he's told everyone not to hire me." "Richard Sterling doesn't intimidate us. Your grandfather's estate is worth considerably more to our firm than Sterling Industries ever could be. Besides, William Sterling specifically requested we look after you if you ever needed us. He seemed to anticipate this exact situation." "He did?" "Your grandfather was a very perceptive man. He once told me, 'My son values the wrong things. But Laura has my spirit. She'll need protection from her parents' pride. Can you be here at 9 tomorrow morning?'" Yes, absolutely." "Good. And Miss Sterling? Bring any documents you have regarding your grandfather's estate, any communications from lawyers, any papers your parents might have had you sign. Your grandfather left very specific instructions, but we need to verify some details." As I hung up, I remembered something. 2 weeks after grandfather's funeral, my father had me sign some papers, routine estate documents, he'd said. I'd been grieving, trusting, but I'd kept copies in my cloud storage, a habit from law school. Maybe grandfather had protected me after all. Sophie was born on a rainy Tuesday in July at Mount Sinai Hospital. I labored for 16 hours alone, gripping the bed rails, with only a kind nurse named Patricia holding my hand. When they placed her on my chest, this perfect, tiny person with her grandfather's eyes, I sobbed. Not from pain, but from a love so fierce it took my breath away. "She's beautiful," Patricia whispered. Anyone here with you? No, just us. Those first years were brutal. Morrison and Associates had been true to their word. The job was real, the health insurance covered everything. But being a single mother in Manhattan on an entry-level salary meant 60-hour weeks, pumping breast milk in bathroom stalls, and falling asleep over case files with Sophie in a bassinet beside my desk. Our apartment in Queens was a far cry from Greenwich, 500 square feet, bars on the windows, sirens all night. Half my salary went to a nanny named Rosa, who taught Sophie Spanish while I worked until midnight. The other half barely covered rent and formula. I remember one night, Sophie screaming with colic, my laptop open to a complex trust document, thinking about my childhood bedroom with its walk-in closet bigger than our entire apartment. "Patience, Laura," I whispered, echoing my grandfather's words. Patience. Every small victory felt enormous. Sophie's first word, Mama. Her first steps, in the law firm's lobby. My first successful case, a $10 million settlement that earned me a promotion to senior associate. We were surviving. More than that, we were building something real. But my parents' cruelty didn't stop. When Sophie was 2, I received a cease and desist letter. Stop using the Sterling name or face legal action. When she was 3, they spread rumors that I'd embezzled money, nearly costing me my job until Marcus Cooper shut it down with one phone call. The cruelest blow came when Sophie started asking questions. "Mommy, why don't I have grandparents like Emma at school? How do you explain to a 5-year-old that her grandparents chose their reputation over her existence? That they lived 40 minutes away in a mansion with 8 empty bedrooms, but wouldn't acknowledge she was alive?" "Some families look different, baby," I'd say, braiding her hair for school. "We have each other, and that's enough." But it wasn't just the emotional wounds. My father actively sabotaged every opportunity he could. When I applied for a mortgage, he had banking friends deny my applications. When Sophie got into an elite preschool, he threatened to pull Sterling Industries donations until they rescinded her acceptance. The Sterling name followed us like a curse. The legal letters kept coming, always on Sterling Industries' letterhead, always threatening. Any attempt to contact the family will be considered harassment. Any use of family connections will be prosecuted as fraud. Any claim to the Sterling legacy will be met with immediate legal action. I saved every letter, every email, every documented threat in a folder labeled Evidence. My law school training had taught me the value of documentation. Someday, I thought, this paper trail would matter. "Why are those people so mean to us?" Sophie asked once after a Sterling family friend had literally crossed the street to avoid us. "Sometimes people are afraid of truth," I told her. "But we don't need to be afraid of anything, because we have something they don't." "What's that?" "Each other. And integrity." She nodded solemnly, her little face so serious. "And ice cream on Fridays?" "That too, baby, that too." What I didn't know was that 3,000 miles away, James Morrison was about to change everything with a single phone call. The case that changed everything involved a pharmaceutical company trying to bury evidence of toxic side effects. Sound familiar? It wasn't Sterling Industries, but the parallels were obvious. I worked 18-hour days, Sophie doing homework in my office, building an airtight case that resulted in a $10 million settlement and justice for dozens of families. "Brilliant work," Marcus Cooper said, calling me into his office. "The partners have voted. You're being promoted to senior associate with a corresponding salary increase." The number he named made me dizzy. Not Greenwich money, but enough to move Sophie and me to a 2-bedroom in Manhattan. Enough for the private school that would challenge her brilliant mind. Enough to stop checking my bank balance before buying groceries. "There's more," Marcus continued. "James Morrison wants to see you. He's been monitoring your progress for years, at your grandfather's request." "My grandfather's been dead for 7 years." "His instructions weren't." Marcus smiled. "James has been waiting for the right moment. He believes that moment is now. That afternoon, I met James Morrison in his corner office overlooking Central Park. At 75, he radiated the quiet power that comes from decades of managing old money secrets. On his desk sat a folder marked, Confidential, William Sterling Estate. Your grandfather was my closest friend, he began, and the smartest man I ever knew. He saw this coming. All of it. Your parents' reaction, their cruelty, everything. How could he know? Because your father showed his true colors long ago. The way he treated employees, the way he hungered for power he hadn't earned. William knew that if you ever challenged the Sterling status quo, Richard would destroy you rather than accept you. He pushed the folder across the desk. So he protected you. It's time you knew exactly how much. My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside was a will dated January 15th, 1995, when I was just 5 years old. The document was pristine, notarized, witnessed by 3 partners of Morrison and Associates. This can't be right, I whispered, reading the key passage for the 3rd time. It says I'm the sole beneficiary of everything, not my father. Me. Keep reading, James said quietly. The details were staggering. $50 million in trust. Multiple real estate holdings, including properties in Manhattan, Connecticut, and Martha's Vineyard. Stock portfolios, bond funds, art collections. But the crown jewel made me gasp. 51% of Sterling Industries shares. Your grandfather founded that company, James explained. He gave your father 49% and the CEO title 15 years ago, but he never gave him control. He kept 51% in a trust, waiting. Waiting for what? For you to be ready. The trust was structured to transfer to you automatically on your 35th birthday, that's next month, or upon certain triggering events. What triggering events? James smiled. If your parents ever formally disowned you or barred you from the family home, your grandfather anticipated their cruelty and used it against them. The moment they threw you out, the trust activated. You've technically owned everything for 7 years. We just couldn't tell you until you were established enough to handle the fallout. I stared at the papers. My parents have been living in a house I own? One of several, yes. They've been drawing salaries from a company you control. Your father has been making decisions that legally require your approval. They don't know? We've been managing it through a shell trust to protect you while you built your career. But now? Now you're ready to claim what's yours. There's a specific clause here. James pointed to a section highlighted in yellow. Your parents can remain in the Greenwich house only as long as they make no attempt to contact you or Sophie. One violation, and they're subject to immediate eviction. Grandfather thought of everything. He did. Look at this addendum. James flipped to another page. If they ever try to claim grandparental rights or demand access to your child, they forfeit their positions at Sterling Industries and their monthly allowances from the trust. The monthly allowances were generous, $50,000 each, but they came with ironclad conditions: no contact, no harassment, no public statements about me or Sophie. It was a golden cage of their own making. Why didn't he just disinherit my father completely? Because William wanted them to have a choice. They could have chosen love, chosen you, and kept everything. Instead, they chose pride and lost control without knowing it. He called it poetic justice. I found a letter in the folder, sealed, with my name in grandfather's handwriting. Inside, his message was brief. My dearest Laura, if you're reading this, then your parents have shown their true nature. I'm sorry for the pain they've caused you, but know this. I saw your strength from the day you were born. Your father values money and status. You value truth and justice. Sterling Industries needs a leader with integrity. The documents in this trust ensure that when you're ready, you can restore honor to the Sterling name. All my love, Grandfather. So what happens now? I asked James. Now we wait for them to come to you, and they will come, Laura. Your father's been making questionable deals, thinking he has full control. The board is getting restless when they learn who really owns the majority shares. He smiled. Well, that's when things get interesting. Can you imagine discovering your grandparents secretly protected you all along? That while your parents were busy destroying your life, someone who truly loved you had already secured your future? Like this video if you believe in karma and that justice, though sometimes slow, always finds a way. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their pain isn't permanent, that tables can turn in the most unexpected ways. Now let me tell you about the day my parents finally showed up at my door, completely unaware that the power dynamic had shifted entirely. 5 years passed. 5 years of careful preparation, building my reputation, and watching from a distance as my father made increasingly desperate decisions. Sterling Industries' stock had dropped 30% under his leadership. 3 board members had resigned. Whispers of mismanagement grew louder. Meanwhile, I thrived. At 34, I became the youngest managing partner in Morrison & Associates history. My corner office on the 40th floor had views of the entire city. Sophie, now 10, was a straight-A student at Branson, speaking 3 languages and winning science fairs with projects about pharmaceutical ethics. A pointed irony not lost on me. We lived in a penthouse on the Upper East Side, not ostentatious, but elegant. Sophie had stability, excellence, and most importantly, love. We'd built a chosen family. Marcus Cooper became her uncle figure, Rosa stayed on as our housekeeper, and Sophie's beloved abuela. And James Morrison played the grandfather role my father had rejected. Then came the news I'd been expecting. Sterling Industries was hemorrhaging money. A failed merger, an FDA investigation, and a class action lawsuit had left the company vulnerable. My father needed board approval for a desperate refinancing plan. What he didn't know was that I'd been quietly reaching out to board members, introducing myself as William Sterling's granddaughter, letting them discover on their own who held the majority shares. The annual charity gala is next month, James informed me over lunch. Sterling Industries is the primary sponsor. Your parents will be there as honored guests. And the board wants to meet you. They're planning to call an emergency meeting that same week. Your father has no idea what's coming. I looked at Sophie's photo on my desk. Confident, brilliant, kind. Everything my parents had tried to destroy. Then it's time they found out exactly who they threw away. The Childhood Cancer Foundation Gala was the social event of the year. 500 of New York's elite gathered at the Plaza Hotel. Sterling Industries had sponsored it for 20 years, their banner hanging prominently above the stage. My parents would be at Table 1, accepting an award for their generous support. I'd received my invitation from the board directly. Table 12, strategically placed where my parents couldn't see me until the right moment. The program listed me as Laura Sterling, Managing Partner, Morrison & Associates, with no mention of my connection to the sponsors. But first, I had something else to arrange. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for Tuesday, 3 days after the gala. The agenda, distributed to all board members except my father, had one item: vote of no confidence in CEO Richard Sterling. "Are you ready for this?" Marcus asked as we reviewed the plan in my office. "I've been ready for 7 years. They'll fight back. Your father won't go quietly. He won't have a choice. 51% trumps everything else." Sophie knocked and entered, poised beyond her 10 years. "Mom, are you really going to see them?" I'd been honest with her, age appropriately, about why she didn't have grandparents. She knew they'd chosen their reputation over us. She knew we were better off without them. "Yes, baby, but not for reconciliation, for closure." "And to show them what they missed?" I smiled. "That too." She hugged me tight. "They're idiots for not wanting us." Language, Sophie. Sorry, they're formally educated idiots for not wanting us. That's my girl. My brilliant, confident girl who would never question her worth because someone else couldn't see it. The Sterling name would mean something different for her generation. Integrity over image, substance over status. 2 days before the gala, my assistant knocked on my office door. "Ms. Sterling, There are two people here claiming to be your parents. They don't have an appointment. My hand stilled on the keyboard. 7 years of silence, and they just appeared? Send them in. They entered like they owned the place. My father in his $5,000 Tom Ford suit, my mother clutching her new Hermes Birkin. They'd aged, but expensively. His hair silver but perfectly styled, her face frozen by subtle procedures. They didn't knock, didn't wait for permission, just walked in like I was still the daughter they could command. Laura. My father's voice held the same dismissive tone from 7 years ago. We need to discuss Sophie. You mean the grandchild you've never acknowledged exists? My mother's lips pursed. That's all in the past. We've reconsidered our position. How magnanimous of you. Don't be flippant, my father snapped. She's our blood. We have rights. Rights? I laughed, actually laughed. You formally disowned me. You sent written notice to 500 people that I was no longer your daughter. You threatened legal action if I used the Sterling name. What rights could you possibly have? Grandparental rights are recognized in New York State, my mother said, as if she'd rehearsed it. Our lawyer says, your lawyer is wrong. I kept my voice steady, professional. Grandparental rights require an existing relationship to preserve. You've never met Sophie. You've actively avoided her for 10 years. No court would grant you access. You can't keep her from us forever, my father threatened. The Sterling name needs an heir. The Sterling name has an heir. Her name is Sophie Sterling, and she doesn't need grandparents who threw her mother out while pregnant. Their faces were getting red. Good. Let them feel a fraction of what I felt 7 years ago. You think your little law degree scares us? My father leaned forward, trying to intimidate me like I was still 25 and desperate. Sterling Industries has a team of lawyers who work for Sterling Industries, not for you personally. I am Sterling Industries. Are you? I kept my face neutral, giving nothing away. That's interesting. My mother jumped in, switching to manipulation. Laura, darling, we're family. Surely we can move past this unpleasantness. Sophie deserves to know her heritage, her place in society. We can open doors for her. The same doors you slammed in my face? That was different. You were unmarried? Pregnant? I was your daughter. The words came out sharp. And Sophie doesn't need your doors. She's already at Branson, already brilliant, already everything you claimed I'd ruined her chances of becoming. Branson? My mother's eyes widened. How did you manage without you? Quite well, actually. My father stood, his face purple with rage, the same shade from 7 years ago. You listened to me, you ungrateful. Security is one button away, I interrupted calmly. I suggest you leave before I have you escorted out. Again, that seems to be our pattern, doesn't it? You throwing me out of your house, me throwing you out of my office. Your office? He laughed bitterly. You're an employee here. I could buy this entire firm with what I spend on lawyers annually. Try it, I said simply. See how that works out for you. They exchanged glances, confused by my confidence. They still saw me as the desperate pregnant girl they'd discarded. They had no idea that I'd been holding royal flush for 7 years, waiting for the right moment to play it. I stood, moving to my office safe with deliberate calm. The combination clicked open and I withdrew a folder, not the original documents, of course, but certified copies James had prepared for this exact moment. Before you make any more threats about legal action or grandparental rights, there's something you should know. What's that supposed to mean? My mother's voice had lost some of its imperious tone. I placed the folder on my desk but didn't open it yet. Tell me, when was the last time you spoke to the board of Sterling Industries? My father frowned. What does that have to do with? Just answer the question. The quarterly meeting last month. Not that it's any of your business. Interesting. And you didn't notice anything unusual? No questions about ownership structure? No concerns about voting shares? His face paled slightly. What are you talking about? I opened the folder, pulling out the first document. This is a certified copy of William Sterling's last will and testament, dated January 15, 1995. I placed it where they could see it. You'll note the beneficiary section. My mother snatched it up, her Botoxed forehead trying unsuccessfully to furrow. This can't be real. Oh, but it is. Notarized, witnessed, filed with the state of New York 20 years ago. I pulled out the next document. And this is the trust agreement, showing the automatic transfer of assets upon certain triggering events. My father grabbed it from her hands, his eyes scanning frantically. Triggering events? Yes, such as formally disowning his granddaughter, barring her from the family home, sending written notice that she's no longer a Sterling. I smiled. You did all three. In writing, to 500 people. The papers shook in his hands. This can't be legal. I've owned 51% of Sterling Industries for 7 years, I said, each word measured and clear. Every decision you've made, every merger, every acquisition, technically required my approval. The board knows now. They've known for 6 months. You're lying. But my father's voice cracked. He knew grandfather's signature, knew those witnesses. The house you live in? The one you threw me out of? It's been part of my trust portfolio since the day you disowned me. You've been living in my property, drawing salaries from my company, spending money that technically needed my authorization. We'll fight this, my mother gasped. We'll contest the will. On what grounds? Grandfather was of sound mind. The will was properly executed 20 years ago, and you've been accepting the terms by living in trust properties and drawing from trust accounts. I pulled out another document. Your own lawyers confirmed the will's validity when they processed his estate. Of course, they didn't mention the controlling interest because the trust was sealed until activated. My father collapsed into a chair, his face ashen. The board meeting Tuesday is to vote on your removal as CEO. I've already got the votes. Grandfather's friends on the board have been waiting for this moment as long as I have. You can't. I can. I will. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. I pressed my intercom. Security to the 40th floor, please. Wait, my mother pleaded, her composed facade cracking. Laura, please. We're your parents. No. You made it very clear 7 years ago that you weren't. You chose reputation over relationship. Grandfather knew you would, and he made sure that choice would cost you everything. 2 security guards appeared at my door. My parents looked between them and me, finally understanding that the power dynamic had completely reversed. The plaza ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and New York's elite. 500 guests in designer gowns and tuxedos, champagne flowing, silent auction paddles rising. My parents sat at table 1, my father forcing smiles while my mother clutched her pearls, literally. I entered through a side door, my Oscar de la Renta gown in midnight blue flowing perfectly. The Tiffany diamonds at my throat, purchased with my own money, caught the light. Heads turned, whispers started. Laura Sterling, the disowned daughter, was here. The board members at table 3 nodded to me, the mayor's wife waved, the gossip columnists perked up like bloodhounds catching a scent. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. The foundation president took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, before we honor Sterling Industries for their generous support, I'd like to announce a change in tonight's program. Please welcome the new chairwoman of Sterling Industries Board of Directors, Ms. Laura Sterling. The gasps rippled through the room like dominoes falling. My father shot to his feet, his face purple. My mother's champagne glass shattered on the floor. I walked to the stage with measured steps, passing their table without acknowledgement. The microphone waited, 500 pairs of eyes watched. Good evening. I'm Laura Sterling, granddaughter of William Sterling, who founded Sterling Industries with a vision of ethical pharmaceutical development. I paused, letting that sink in. As the majority shareholder and new board chair, I'm pleased to announce a complete restructuring of our corporate leadership, effective immediately. You can't do this, my father's voice carried across the ballroom. I looked at him directly for the first time. Actually, I can. Security? The plaza's security team was already moving, having been briefed beforehand, but I raised my hand, stopping them. Let him speak. Let everyone hear. "This is a coup!" my father shouted, his composure completely shattered. "She's stealing what I built." "What you built?" I kept my voice calm, the microphone carrying every word. Sterling Industries was founded by William Sterling in 1963. You were given a position, not ownership, and that position is now terminated. A server appeared at my parents' table with an envelope on a silver tray. The eviction notice, served with style. My mother opened it, her face draining of color. 30 days? 30 days to vacate my property, I confirmed into the microphone. The same amount of time you gave me when I was 7 months pregnant, though I'm providing moving assistance, which is more than you offered. The room was dead silent. Everyone knew the story, how the Sterlings had disowned their pregnant daughter. Now they were watching karma unfold in real time. "Our lawyers," my father started, "have already been informed that Sterling Industries will no longer require their services. In fact, every major firm in the city has been notified about the change in leadership. You'll find it difficult to secure representation, especially since you'll be paying personally, not through company accounts." Board member Charles Whitman stood up at table 3. "The board fully supports Ms. Sterling's leadership. The vote was unanimous." "You planned this," my mother accused, loud enough for everyone to hear. "No, mother. Grandfather planned this. He knew exactly who you both were. He protected me and Sophie from your cruelty before you even had a chance to execute it." My father tried one last desperate move. "What about Sophie, our granddaughter? The granddaughter you've never met? The one you called a bastard and a mistake? She wants nothing to do with you." As if on cue, Sophie walked in through the main entrance. 10 years old, poised, wearing an age-appropriate but elegant dress. She'd been waiting in the anteroom with Marcus, watching on the closed-circuit feed, and we'd agreed she could come in if she felt comfortable. She walked directly to the stage, ignoring the table where my parents sat frozen. I helped her up the steps and handed her the microphone. "Hello," Sophie said, her young voice clear and strong. "I'm Sophie Sterling. I'm 10 years old, and I'm here to support my mom." The audience was captivated. This was the child my parents had rejected, and she was magnificent. "Some people think family is about blood," Sophie continued, "but I learned that family is about choice. These people," she gestured to my parents without looking at them, "chose their reputation over my mom and me before I was even born. They're not my family. My family is my mom, who worked 18-hour days to give me everything. My uncle Marcus, who taught me chess. My abuela Rosa, who makes sure I never forget where strength really comes from. And my grandpa James, not by blood, but by choice, who reads to me every Sunday." She looked directly at my parents then, her gaze steady. "You gave up the right to know me before I existed. And seeing you now, I understand that was the best gift you ever gave me, freedom from your conditional love." The silence was deafening. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the entire ballroom was applauding, except for 2 people sitting frozen at table 1. Sophie handed back the microphone and whispered, "Did I do okay, Mom?" "Perfect, baby. Absolutely perfect." My parents rose to leave, but found security waiting at every exit. Not to trap them, but to escort them out with the same efficiency they'd once used on me. The next morning, my parents were in James Morrison's conference room. They looked haggard, aged 10 years overnight. The society pages were brutal. Sterling Heiress's Sweet Revenge and Karma Comes to Greenwich dominated the headlines. I sat across from them, James beside me, the final document spread between us. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You have 2 choices. Option 1, you sign this agreement. You get a modest condo in Florida, a monthly stipend of $5,000 each, and basic health insurance. In exchange, you agree to no contact with Sophie or me, ever. No interviews, no social media, no attempts at reconciliation." "5,000?" my mother gasped. "We spend that on lunch." "You spent that on lunch, past tense," I continued. Option 2. You refuse to sign. I proceed with full disinheritance, forensic accounting of your spending over the last 7 years, and potential criminal charges for misuse of corporate funds. You get nothing. This is extortion, my father spat. This is more than you offered me, I replied. When I was pregnant and scared, you gave me 20 minutes and threw me out. I'm giving you a home and an income. That's the difference between us. James slid a pen across the table. You have 1 hour to decide. What about Sophie? My mother asked quietly. Will she ever know us? She knows everything she needs to know about you. If she ever chooses to reach out as an adult, that will be her decision. But I doubt she will. She's learned that DNA doesn't make a family, love does. They signed. Of course they signed. Without their wealth and connections, they were nothing. They'd built their entire identities on the Sterling name and fortune, never realizing both actually belonged to me. 2 years have passed since that night at the plaza. Sterling Industries, under my leadership, has pivoted toward ethical pharmaceutical development. We've settled the lawsuits my father created, implemented transparent pricing, and our stock has risen 40%. The company my grandfather built finally reflects his values again. My parents moved to a 2-bedroom condo in Boca Raton. They get their monthly allowance and they've kept their end of the bargain. Complete silence. I heard through the grapevine that they tell their neighbors they're retired teachers. The irony isn't lost on me. Sophie, now 12, just won the National Science Fair with a project on making insulin affordable for all patients. She wants to be a doctor, not a lawyer. No offense, Mom, but I want to help people directly. She's in therapy to process everything, because I believe in breaking cycles, not perpetuating them. The Greenwich House has been transformed into the William Sterling Foundation, providing housing and support for pregnant women rejected by their families. 23 women and their children live there now, in the rooms where I was once told I was a disgrace. My office wall displays 3 photos: Sophie at her science fair, grandfather and me when I was 5, and our chosen family at last Christmas, Marcus, Rosa, James, and us. The Sterling family portraits that once hung in Greenwich? I donated them to a museum studying the sociology of American wealth. Let scholars analyze what went wrong. Mom, Sophie asked me recently, do you ever regret not having your parents in your life? No, baby. I regret that they chose pride over love. I regret that they missed knowing the amazing person you are. But I don't regret protecting us from people who only offer conditional love. She nodded, then grinned. Plus, we got their house and company, so karma's pretty cool. That's my girl. It's my... Last month, while organizing grandfather's old study in the Greenwich House, now an office for the foundation, I found a letter he'd hidden in a copy of King Lear. It was dated just weeks before his death. My dearest Laura, if you're reading this, then everything has unfolded as I feared and planned for. I've watched your father become consumed by status, and your mother lose herself in society's mirrors. But you, my dear one, you have my father's heart, the immigrant who built this empire with calloused hands and fierce dreams. I knew about the pregnancy. Marcus Cooper called me the day you contacted him about jobs. I could have intervened then, forced your parents to accept you. But I knew that would only delay the inevitable. They would have made your life and Sophie's miserable with their conditions and judgments. So I let them show their true selves, knowing the law would protect you when they did. Every cruel word they spoke, every door they closed, tightened the legal noose they never saw coming. Your father always underestimated paperwork. He never understood that true power isn't in bank accounts or boardrooms, it's in properly executed documents and patient strategy. Sophie will change the world. I saw it in a dream, a brilliant girl with your eyes and my stubbornness, healing people. Your father's greed hurt. The Sterling name will mean something again because of you both. Live beautifully, love freely, and remember, the best revenge is a life well lived, documented, and properly notarized. All my love. Grandfather P.S. Check the frame of this letter. My original Sterling Industries shares certificate is hidden inside. a reminder that everything built can be rebuilt better. I had the letter framed in my office, certificate and all. Sophie reads it sometimes, understanding that love can transcend death when it's properly planned for. Today, Sophie is thriving at Branson, captain of the debate team and youngest member of the bioethics committee. She's dating a sweet boy named David whose parents are teachers, real ones. When she introduced him to me, she said, "Don't worry, Mom. I made sure his family values love over money. I learned from the best." I'm engaged to Dr. Michael Chen. We're changing his name to Dr. Michael Cooper to avoid any confusion with the Sterling business legacy. He's a pediatric surgeon who runs free clinics on weekends. He met Sophie first, actually, when she was volunteering at the hospital. She approved him before I even knew he existed. "Mom, I found you someone who saves kids and doesn't care about trust funds." My parents? Still in Florida. Still silent. I had someone check on them once. They're healthy, their condo is clean, they joined a book club. They're living the middle-class life they once scorned. Sometimes I wonder if they're happier without the burden of maintaining their facade, but I doubt they'd ever admit it. Sterling Industries just announced a program providing free insulin to families making under $50,000 annually. The board fought me initially, until I reminded them who owns 51%. The program is called the William Sterling Legacy Initiative. Grandfather would have loved that. The family lawyers, Morrison and Associates, now have a pro bono division helping women escape abusive families. We've won every single case. Turns out, when you document everything and plan strategically, justice isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Marcus walked Sophie down the aisle at her mock trial competition last week. "Every girl needs a father figure," he said, "and blood doesn't determine who deserves that honor." She won the case, arguing for corporate accountability and pharmaceutical pricing. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, just sometimes it rolls to a better orchard. People often ask me if I forgive my parents. The answer is complicated. I forgive them for my own peace, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean forgetting. It means I don't carry the weight of their choices anymore. They called me a disgrace, but disgrace is abandoning your pregnant daughter for the opinion of strangers. They said I ruined the Sterling name, but they're the ones who sold their souls for social status. They worried about what everyone would think, never realizing everyone would eventually see them disowned by their own cruelty, served papers at their own gala, and escorted from their own empire. The truth is, blood doesn't make you family. Choice does. My parents had every opportunity to choose love, to choose us. Instead, they chose their reputation, and in the ultimate irony, they lost both. I think about the 23 women living in the Greenwich house now, each one thrown away by families who valued appearance over affection, each one rebuilding with their children, creating new definitions of family. We have dinner together every month. Their kids call me Aunt Laura. Sophie mentors the teenagers. We're the family none of us were born into, but all of us chose. Success isn't the best revenge. Living authentically is. Every morning, I wake up knowing Sophie and I are loved for who we are, not what we represent. Every night, she goes to bed knowing her worth isn't negotiable, isn't conditional, isn't dependent on anyone else's approval. My parents gave me one gift through their rejection. They taught me exactly what not to do. They showed me that wealth without wisdom is poverty, that status without substance is emptiness, that a name without love is just letters on paper. And those letters? I kept them. Sterling. But now it means something different. Sophie graduates from Branson next month as valedictorian. Her speech is about redefining legacy, how true inheritance isn't money or status, but values and choices. She asked if she could mention her grandparents. "Not by name," I said. "They're a cautionary tale, not characters in your story." "What about grandfather William?" "He's not a cautionary tale. He's proof that love finds a way, even from beyond." She's been accepted to Yale, full scholarship, though we could afford tuition now. "I want to earn it like you did, Mom, minus the disownment part." When people Google Sterling family now, They find articles about our foundation, our ethical pharmaceutical initiatives. Sophie's science fair wins. My parents' society pages have been buried under our actual accomplishments. Sometimes karma takes 7 years. Sometimes it takes a grandfather's foresight and a daughter's patience. But it always comes for those who choose cruelty over kindness, pride over people, reputation over relationship. The Sterling name once opened doors for me. Then it locked them. Now Sophie and I have built our own doors, and we decide who gets keys. My name is Laura Sterling. I'm 37 years old. I'm a mother, a lawyer, a CEO, and a survivor. But most importantly, I'm proof that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, and who loves you without conditions. Even if that family comes from a will written 20 years ago by a grandfather who loved you enough to protect your future. If my story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in family rejection. Your worth was never theirs to determine. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with toxic family? Drop a comment. Our community understands and supports each other. Like this video, if you believe that justice, though sometimes slow, always finds its way. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming adversity, finding chosen family, and building legacy from ashes. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's a life so well lived that their absence becomes irrelevant. Until next time, this is Laura, reminding you that you deserve unconditional love.